citric acid, calcium chloride, ferrosulfate, thiamine, mononitrate. Oh, let's try this one. Organic textured soy protein, silicon dioxide, egg albumin. Is this even food, guys? I don't even know what this stuff is. But there's something I can understand when it comes to backcountry food, and that's this stuff right here. The most unphotogenic backcountry food you will ever see. Pemmican. But guys, it's simple. Simple ingredients, whole foods. I'm gonna show you guys how to make it. All of this survival, backpacking, dehydrated food has crazy shit in it. Just look at those labels, guys. What the hell are they talking about? It's even worse for folks on a keto, carnivore, paleo-esque type of diet. Processed snacks for those niches are basically made in a lab. I'm always trying to optimize everything, guys, when it comes to stuff in the backcountry, including my diet. So this fall, I'm going to see if I can get through my fall backcountry hunting season while sticking to my normal day-to-day high-fat protein diet, essentially a carnivore diet. Yeah, I cheat a little bit here and there with fruit. I've been on that diet for several years, but I always get thrown off during the hunting season. Outfitting and guiding just throws me off. Back on that carbohydrate, weird ingredient diet. All those foods I just read the ingredient label on, I get tossed back into that world. But this year I'm not doing it, guys. I'm making my own backcountry snacks, including the pemmican I'm gonna show you in this video. This video is gonna run you guys through how I'm making pemmican for these hunts. Is one of my main sources of calories. We're using basic whole food ingredients, most of which we source right here from my family's farm. Stick around to the very end of this video, guys. I go through the 3 different variations of pemmican I make, and I give them a taste test. We've got rendered beef fat here. We've got cheeses. I'm gonna do my own smoked cheeses. I've got some blueberries here that were hand-picked by my kiddos. We're gonna add liver to the pemmican too once it's dehydrated. Here's some round cuts. That's gonna be our main protein source. And then we've got wood chips and salt and pepper. So that's gonna be the gist of it, guys. We'll see how it goes. Guys, so for the primary ingredient in the pemmican, the actual lean muscle tissue, the beef, I am using a little liver just to add a little bit of flavor and then to get some of those nutrients that we all know come out of liver. So I'll add that in there. I'm gonna process it all the same, but the key thing when you're picking the beef to use on pemmican, one of the challenges is that modern day beef, you know, all the genetics that go into raising cattle and stuff today is all based on as much intermuscular fat as possible. The problem with intermuscular fat when we're talking about pemmican is that the fat that goes into pemmican is going to be rendered tallow, and that stuff has a good shelf life, right? It's stable, you know, bacteria won't grow in it. But the problem with the intermuscular fat inside the beef cuts, it's not that way, all right? So you need to start with the lean cuts that have as minimal amount of that intermuscular fat as possible. So when I talk about that, I mean, if you look in here, you know, in this cut right here, you know, you're gonna see little stringers of fat in here. You wanna have that as minimal as possible, right? Like this is as much as you're gonna want, and that's not gonna give us trouble, but anything more than that and you're gonna have trouble, right? And then any of the fat tissue that's on the outside, trim it off. So what I'm gonna do, guys, is the liver and all the beef, I'm gonna cut into, you know, roughly 1/4 inch thin strips. But the thinner I can get it, the better it's gonna dry, and the more consistent I can get those cuts, the better it's gonna dry in the smoker, all right? I'm not gonna season it like I would jerky before I dry it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it in the smoker with no seasoning, get it as dry as possible, drier than you would typically for jerky, right? Because just like the fruit I'll show you in the next step, and anything else we added to the pemmican, we have to get all that moisture out, okay? So we're gonna over dry it in the smoker. You know, we'll probably have it in there for 12 hours or so, and I'll go over that process and show you what I do there. But we're gonna get it super dry, and then we're gonna blend it into a meat powder, and that's gonna go to the pemmican. So here, anything like this, you can see that a butcher trimmed this pretty well for me, but I'm gonna still get rid of that. So now we're gonna just slice, you know, across the grain here. You can use a meat slicer. I don't have a ton of meat here, so I'm just gonna do it with the knife by hand, but we're shooting for about a 1/4 inch thick And if you're consistent, particularly if you're using a smoker, it'll just save you a lot of hassle. So this is the kind of stuff you're trying to avoid when you're picking the cuts, but there's gonna be a little bit of that. So there we go, sliced up beef. You can see it's pretty darn lean. I'd love to see it with none of that white, but with domestic beef, it's gonna be really hard to get there. So this is basically what you're gonna look at, guys, is fairly lean muscle tissue. That's what you're going for. So we're gonna take this, we're gonna put it on trays, and we're gonna put it into the smoker. Put her up, buddy. Okay guys, so the setup on the smokers, I got one of these Masterbuilt smokers. This is the Cabela's one, but whatever, there's lots of them out there. They've got just the basic system. Pretty big though, so you can do quite a bit at one time. And then I found this little cold smoker adapter thing, this extra little component. It helps a lot, like if you're gonna smoke cheese or anything like that, it keeps a lot of the heat out of the main smoker. But the other thing is you don't have to keep rerunning wood chips through your smoker, right? This thing here, you can just fill up basically that pyramid in there. You fill that up, those wood chips will just slowly cook down, and you get a whole lot more smoke at a much cooler temperature. What are we gonna cook in there?
Pemmican?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna use a mix of hickory and mesquite, but I really like a smoky flavor in my meats, cheeses, or whatever. So I want this pemmican to taste real smoky and kind of have a pretty robust flavor. You might consider some of those more like orchard woods or that sort of thing. You know, apple, cherry, that sort of smoke. If you're not really into the super smoky flavor. I like the smoky flavor, so I'm gonna go with hickory mesquite mix for drying out the meat in this smoker. I'm gonna go an hour at 200 degrees, and then I'm gonna clock the smoker down to about 165, 160, and I'm gonna smoke it until this stuff is super dry, like basically where it cracks, like almost like a potato chip, you know? You don't want it to have any moisture in it. I keep pounding on that, guys. That's the whole trick to this deal, is you gotta get the moisture eliminated, so when you make that powder, there's no moisture in there that can make the pemmican go bad, all right? Open it up.
Wait, can I taste the bite?
Here, let's test to make sure it's right though first. Grab a piece, bud.
Okay.
Grab a piece. So it needs to be where it crunches like that. 1, 2, 3, Pemmican! This is what happens when Dad gets stuck with all the kiddos. We go make YouTube videos. What are you getting there, buddy? Not even close to enough. You need like that whole thing full. Come on, dude. No eating out of the bucket, dude. No eating out of the bucket. No, All right, now we're going to the cherries. We saw the best. Okay, raspberries and then cherries. Got caught up at the blackberries, but why? You think blackberries would be a nice little addition to the pemmican? Yep. We're on a search for cherries here. Okay, well we don't want little ones. Let's find big ones. Okay. All right, go, 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 go. What? They're not the red ones, guys, but they're good.
Yeah, they're delicious.
What'd you find, dude? Show me. Dang. Whoa. Holy smokes, guys. The birds have been on these.
Yeah,
oh.
Whoa.
Okay, guys, get a bunch, okay? Put them in the bucket. Oh my gosh, this tree's got fun, dude. All right, guys, so I got this crew of kiddos helping me to some of the pemmican. We're going to add a little flavor to it. And this wouldn't be really like strict carnivore pemmican because it'll have a little fruit in it and a little sugar that comes with the fruit. But we actually got to eat this stuff, so we're gonna try some flavors that include fruits. We got fresh cherries and we got fresh blueberries. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pit the cherries with this cool cherry pitter. All the pitted cherries and the blueberries, we're gonna put them on dehydrating trays, and we're gonna dehydrate them in these 2 different dehydrators. And basically we're gonna put them at 135 to 140 degrees until this stuff is super dry, because in the end we're actually gonna blend this up just like the meat powder part of the pemmican, and so that means that it can't have any moisture in it. If we have moisture in the fruit or meat or tallow, when we actually make the pemmican, it's gonna limit the shelf life. How do we get raspberries and stuff in there? Okay, so we're gonna do the blueberries in this just cheapo Charlie Nesco dehydrator. And so we got them spread out here thin. Go ahead, Ricky, put that bottom on. Oops, get the blueberry. Here.
Dehydrate.
So we got it at 135-ish. Yep. And so the plan with these guys is we're gonna get them super dry until they're like almost crunchy, and then we're gonna blend them up for the pemmican, right? What the heck, dude? Put those in there. Put those in the bottom one, man. Okay. Yellow and red cherry. Don't eat anymore, dude. You're gonna poop your pants on camera.
Are you gonna cut that part out? What do they taste like?
It's kind of good, huh? What do you think, Mike?
I forgot how good they taste.
Yeah.
Yeah. They taste good, but also tasty.
Alright guys, so we have got this pemmican recipe about whipped. Really all we're gonna get it down to now is our powders, right? So we're gonna take this fruit here that's all crunchy dry. You can hear it there, hopefully. Just as dry as can be, alright? No moisture. Alright, we're gonna make a fruit powder out of that to put in some of the pemmican. Here's our meat, guys. So our meat's super dry. That's actually a chunk of liver there, but the liver and the meat is crazy dry. So you could look at it there. Okay, and just to overview kind of the texture of it, here it snap. So super dry. No moisture in it, okay? All right, so that's the meat. What we're gonna do is we're gonna grind down the meat, we're gonna grind down the fruit powder, and then I'm gonna do 2 different variations. I'm gonna do kind of a sweet plus fruit variation of the pemmican that I'll use on my kids. I'll also test it a little bit, and then I'll do a strict kind of carnivore pemmican, right? That's just gonna have pemmican, salt, and the tallow, okay? So you're gonna see 2 different variations, and I'll show you guys how I do that. So on the fruit, I'm cheating. I'm gonna use a Vitamix here, and we're just gonna dump a little bit in here to start. Okay. Put the top on. Okay. Kind of let the dust settle down so we're not inhaling a bunch of fruit. Okay. It's getting there. Ooh, it smells good. Alright guys. Alright. So you can see the dust coming off of it. It's nice and dry. There's our pemmican fruit powder. Oh man guys, it smells good. Alright guys, so now for the meat, we're gonna do the same process. We're just gonna mix it up. In here, these bigger chunks I might break up a little bit. bit easier for the Vitamix to grind it up into a nice powder. Ooh, it's smoky. Might be a little bit over the top for most folks, but I think it's gonna be just right for my liking. Good idea what that powder should look like. All right guys, so the other primary ingredient to pemmican is the fat, right? And we're specifically talking about tallow. And that's just because, like I iterate on the other ingredients that I talk about, you have to get things dry, you have to get the water out of it. Same goes with the fat. You have to render out the water so you just have the grease and fat, and that's the tallow, right? So that's what you're going for. If you just used lard that hadn't gone through the rendering process, you'd almost immediately get bacteria growth and you'd lose all that shelf life, and the pemmican would go rancid, right? So you've got to have a good source of fat. I use domestic beef fat. What you can do is you can get suet, and you have to kind of do the reverse process that you did with the meat, right? In this case, you have to get rid of the actual muscle tissue that might be attached to that internal body fat, you know, the suet. You'll get little chunks of, you know, meat from the kidneys and that sort of thing. You need to get rid of all that, chop it up into small pieces or grind it, and then you just heat the fat up and render out the actual oil, and then you strain off that oil and you end up with tallow. And the thing about beef tallow, at room temperature, and really I think up to, you know, melting, I think the melting point is like 120 degrees of tallow that's from the suet fat. It'll actually, it's pretty stiff, see? You can, it's like the, you know, at room temperature and refrigerator temperature, it's stiff, right? And you want that because that's what's gonna give the pemmican its consistency, right? And one of the problems that I'm looking forward to really testing in a true backcountry environment, like I will in a future video, as I mentioned in the intro, is I want to see how this pemmican holds up to body heat and then fluctuations in temperatures in terms of the weather, right, and what it's exposed to. Because if that tallow gets real mushy, it could be a mess. And a lot of times these foods in the backcountry, the practicality of packing them and eating them and not getting shit all over you, you know, when you're trying to be as hygienic as possible, you know, getting stuff everywhere, it's not real easy to clean up stuff. So it's actually fairly relevant, guys. And I'm gonna attempt to address that in the way I package the pemmican, but just realize that's one of the things with this tallow. You've got to use tallow that's got a high melting point like beef tallow, or you're gonna have problems. You know, another thought, guys, is you could use bear fat. I've rendered a lot of bear fat over the years, and it's awesome to cook with. To be honest, like, it's my favorite way to cook actual bear. Bear meat's not my favorite meat, but one of my favorite ways is just chop it up into small pieces and fry the meat actually in rendered bear fat, basically. And you can do it in a simple process. You actually put the fat in the saucepan or whatever, get it going, and you start that rendering process where the clear oil comes out of the bear fat. You can actually kind of pull out those little chunks of, you know, the little remaining chunks of fat. They're kind of like little chitlins or whatever. You can pull those out and throw bear meat in there. You can cook it really well. You know you're gonna cook that bear meat through, and it's awesome. It's a huge energy punch too. Anyways, that's kind of a caveat. But on the bear fat front, you want to render it, strain it, get it where it's real nice if you're going to use it on a recipe like this in pemmican or baking or whatever. One thing to realize about fat, and it goes for beef, it's just that beef, you know, in general is fed the same thing. It's either grass-fed or grain-fed. And so there's going to be a little bit of taste difference there. But on bears, the difference in taste of fat is huge, right? So even if you're killing bears in the same areas, one year they've been pounding acorns because that's what's good that year, that fat is going to taste significantly different than if another year they're pounding choke cherries. Not necessarily bad or worse or whatever, but just realize that even after you render bear fat, you're gonna get some flavor from it. It's kind of like you know, now all these sparkling canned waters and stuff are all the rage, and you look at the ingredients, just water, and then it'll be like essence of lemon or essence of grapefruit or something like that. And it's like, well, I don't know what that is, but when you drink it, like it tastes like grapefruit or it tastes like lemon. That's how bear fat is. It gets the essence of whatever that bear's been eating. So realize if you use bear fat and you render it into tallow for a pemmican recipe, you're gonna taste that bear fat, and it's gonna vary year to year based on what that bear had been eating. So just realize that, but it's a great fat to use, and it kind of holds with the tradition of pemmican. So it'd be cool to have like bear fat pemmican. Just an option for you. But beef tallow, you can buy beef tallow too. You can buy it on Amazon. Sometimes you can find it in the grocery store or whatever. Just realize that I'm not sure if it's gonna have a lower melting point or not. I've been told different things. I've been told that suet fat for some reason has a higher melting point than just body fat. I don't know, guys, but it's just something for you to keep in mind. So anyways, guys, that's the tallow. At the end, I'll show you how you mix it. Really, you're just gonna mix it to give the pemmican the type of consistency you want, right? So that's how all these ingredients are in a sense. It's not like there's a strict set of ingredients for pemmican. You're gonna do it to taste. The easy thing about it is it's really just like two or three ingredients maximum. So you can put those together at the end, and you can use exactly how much you want. I've got plenty of tallow here for the amount of pemmican that we're making. All right, guys, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add a little salt to the entire meat mixture here, right? And then also I wanna make sure I got that liver consistently throughout the meat powder. So I'm gonna do some mixing of the salt and just the meat powder in general. I've got my bigger mixing bowl. I've got it on a scale here. I've got the scale zeroed out. Add all the meat powder in here. I'm gonna add 1.5% salt, 1.5 to 1.7% salt. So I'll just calculate that real quick. Okay, so right there's about 1.6%. All right, guys, I'll take it off the scale. So for the more traditional pemmican, and if you're on a strict carnivore diet or that sort of thing, this is all you're gonna use. You're just gonna mix this meat powder with tallow, okay? But we're actually gonna do 3 variations. I changed it up a little bit, okay? I'm gonna do one traditional, just tallow and meat powder and salt that's already mixed in there, obviously. I'm gonna do one that's tallow, meat powder, and actually crushed red pepper just for a little spice. And then I'm gonna do a sweet one, which is it's gonna be mildly sweet. You know, that's probably an exaggeration to call it a sweet one, but it's gonna be meat powder, fruit powder, and it's going to be a little honey from my brother's farm here, all right? So that's the plan, guys. So let's do that. We're gonna get, I'll just start with 3 bowls. I'll show you guys how we harvested the honey. My brother's got a pretty cool little system, but I think it's really interesting to see, you know, this is a store-bought clover honey. You can see the color of it there, you know, versus the farm honey. And that's, I'm not saying one's better than the other or whatever. I'm just saying that it's different, and it just has to do with whatever pollen the bees are hitting. So I think that's pretty interesting, okay? But we're gonna use the farm honey because we got it ourselves, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's honeycomb. I could eat honeycomb. What the heck? I love getting the honey right there. That is some good honey. It almost felt them.
So I'm basically going to try to split this meat powder amongst the 3 here evenly. My hope is that for the fruit powder, I have about this much meat powder or a little bit more, so it's like 60-40 mix. And then of course the others, there's not going to be a main mix. It's just going to be meat powder. So I'm shooting for about 60-40, 40% fruit powder, 60% meat powder on that one particular pemmican flavor. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put the fruit in there first. Oh, I gotta try this. Oh, it's good. It tastes basically like a powdered fruit roll-up. So it's phenomenal. So this one right here, that's basically 60-40 fruit powder and the dried meat powder there. One here. So we basically got those split half and half. These are just meat powder. So meat powder, fruit and meat powder, okay. All right guys, so on the fruit one, I'm gonna cheat a little bit more and add some of this honey from the farm. Not a ton, but enough that you're gonna taste it in there. And then this one, let's see which one's lighter. About the same. We're gonna add some red pepper. Just some crushed red pepper flakes. Woo, those are hot. I got one in my mouth, damn. Woo. Okay, anyways, let's add a little bit of that. We'll go kind of light on it because those are spicy. All right guys, I'm gonna go through and mix these up real good. One thing I noticed with the honey and the meat powder, it wants to ball up because it's only moisture in there. And so you gotta kind of break up those balls. Alright guys, so our sweet pemmican, that's our normal one. Spicy pemmican, normal one. Alright, so now it's time to add the good old fat, right? The tallow. Alright guys, the best part, adding the energy to the pemmican. So, we've got some nice beef tallow here, all nice and shiny. My wife wishes this was whipped cream, it kind of looks like that. And honestly guys, it tastes pretty good. You know, particularly if you're used to eating fat, it's pretty good. It doesn't have a real strong taste, but that's gonna be our energy source that's gonna go into the pemmican. So how we're gonna do this, guys, is right here on the oven, I've got just a little water starting to simmer, right? And I'm gonna use the double broiler, or boiler, I don't know, but that's what they call it. And what it is you heat the water up, and then I'm gonna use this pan here, I'm gonna set that on top, just so it slowly warms up the tallow and it'll start to get clear and it'll become a liquid, and that way we can mix it with our different pemmican mixes. And what we're going for here is we just want a consistency where the pemmican's gonna lay flat and it can harden up when the tallow re-hardens up. We don't want it to be like, have so much fat in there that the grease like pools on top of the pemmican. We just want to get it where it's basically sticking everything together, right? And turns the pemmican into a bar. That's kind of the plan. But first we got to melt some of the tallow, and then we're just going to slowly add it, and I'll show you that process, and we'll go from there. So I'm just going to start with a little chunk. Alright, so that's going to go on the double broiler, and I'll show you guys that process. Simmering water, lard on there, or tallow on there. The reason we do it this way, guys, is we don't want to cook the tallow again or burn it or anything. Just as like a subtle way, a nice smooth way to just warm that tallow up where we can work with it. I'm gonna layer the first set of pemmican in this glass tray for you guys so you can see it real well. And the first one we're gonna do is the fruit and honey one. All right guys, the fat is ready to go, so we're gonna go ahead and add it. You can until it's ready just because there's no solids. What I'm gonna do, guys, I'm just gonna just add like a drizzle of it around. Okay, remember, you can always add more. Good luck taking it back out, so. I mean, it's kind of like watering a dry field in a sense, right? Like at first, it looks like it's just gonna soak it all up and all that tallow is just gonna vanish. But the more you put in there, the quicker it gets wet. So just realize that it reaches saturation point pretty quick. So just add a little bit at a time. Starting to bind together. We're still not quite there. So you can see at this point it's starting to bind up pretty good. Might add just a smidge more. I find that if I go like that, it starts to kind of bind together. It's probably pretty close. Ooh, it smells good. Keep wanting to taste it just because I'm so curious, but we'll get it in its final form. So here you can see it's starting to bind up real good. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna go ahead, put it in this pan. This is gonna be kind of like the final way or thickness it's packaged. So I gotta be kind of following this in what I want it to look like here. So although it's gonna get crazy greasy on my hands, I'm just gonna go ahead and use my hands just so it stays a real consistent. I can feel the depth of it, right? You can see it's got a little fiber to it there, but some of that's the fruit, some of that's the meat. But that's all right. That would kind of give it a little texture. Okay, so there's our fruit sweet version. I'm gonna stick that puppy in the fridge, let that tallow thicken up. Let's do the spicy one here, all right. That's actually real good with that red pepper. When that recipe hits the internet, that might be the new thing for tallow, or for pemmican. All right, guys, so this next step, I'm gonna take this pemmican and I'm gonna make little 1,000-calorie packets, right? I'm gonna put them in these vacuum food saver bags, get them all vacuumed up, and I'm gonna just have little units of 1,000 calories of pemmican. So putting it in a unit like that, it makes it so it's just a nice setup. So whenever I go to plan my hunts, you know, my backcountry trips, I just know, okay, that's 1,000 calories right there. And for each day, I can figure out what I need to take, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and store it that way. In terms of the actual pemmican, what you'll find is you're gonna find variations of how many calories per ounce are in it all over the internet. You're gonna see everything from 115 calories up to 250 calories per ounce. Essentially, it's just gonna be based on how much tallow is in your recipe. You know, tallow is very easy to find a specific calorie measurement out there, and basically it's 255 to 260 calories per ounce. So if it's 70% tallow, you can figure out, you know, what how many calories you have per ounce for your specific recipe. Mine is roughly around 180, 185 calories per ounce. And if you've done any, you know, ultralight backpacking, or you've done backpack hunts and you've planned food for those hunts, you know that 185 calories per ounce is a super caloric food. It's probably above your expectations. It's a lot higher than most foods, particularly like a whole food. So it's nice in that regard. But anyways, I'll just show you how I make those little 1,000-calorie packets, and that's a good way to store it. And I do that with other foods too. If you can just store them in a round number, you know, if it's smoked cheese or other snacks that you like, if you store them in packets that are a round number of calories, it makes the whole planning process a whole lot easier when you're counting calories and you're making those day packets for your hunt or other backcountry trip you're going on. So I just use a little food scale like this, get it zeroed, and I'll just show you what 1,000 calories of this pemmican looks like. We're basically looking for 5.4, 5.5 ounces on the scale, and at 185 calories per ounce, that's gonna put us at 1,000 calories. Getting close. So that's 5.4 ounces of pemmican, which equates to about 1,000 calories. So that's what it looks like, guys. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and vacuum pack that up, and that's my 1,000 calorie chunk of pemmican. All right, guys, so there's 1,000 calories of pemmican right there, right? Fit your hand just so you guys see the size of it. Really not much food for 1,000 calories. All right, guys, just got done with late night pemmican packaging, and here you go. This is what a bunch of 1,000 calorie packages of pemmican look like. A bunch of different flavors here that we'll test, but that's the next stage. All right, guys, so now for the taste test of this stuff. So we got the fruit slash kind of sweet pemmican. It's got honey and fruit in it. Let's see here. We've got the original pemmican recipe. That is just meat and tallow and salt. And then this one over here is meat, tallow, salt, and crushed red pepper. So I'll start with just the original recipe one. I would just call it bland. If you're not used to eating, fat off of a steak or something like that, you may not like the taste of it, because you can for sure taste the tallow taste in there. But really pretty bland. I think I probably need to put a little more fat in there just because the consistency of it is breaking up a little bit. But other than that, no complaints. If I had to eat, 10, 12 ounces of it without any additional spices, it might be kind of tricky, but it's fine. The fruit one here. So it's still not sweet by any means with that dried fruit, and that's 40% the dry fruit powder and 60% the dried smoked beef powder. It's good, but it's not as sweet as you would think, right? And I put a little bit of honey in there too, but it's good. It's got a lot of flavor to it, and actually, even on the original recipe, you can taste like the smokiness. I don't think, a lot of people, when I smoke food, they kind of think I overdo the smokiness because I kind of like that smoky flavor. But on this, I don't think anybody would say that. I actually think you could probably smoke it more. And I was running mesquite and hickory during the smoking process, the drying out process, which basically took 12 to 13 hours. I was running smoke on it probably like 35-40% of the time, so a lot of smoke. And it still is not overpowering, so I would recommend that you do that. It tastes good in both of these. For sure the fruit one tastes better, and I could probably eat a lot of that every day. It tastes pretty good. Alright, so the red pepper one, that's probably my favorite one, to be honest with you. I like the red pepper in there. All it is the original recipe plus crushed red pepper. If a guy didn't want to be, really strict carnivore diet or strict keto or whatever, just didn't want any sugar, and they add a little honey to that, I bet that would be phenomenal. But it's pretty damn good now. I could probably eat that. Same deal, I think, though. I think it needs a little more fat in it. It's not quite the consistency I want. It's kind of breaking up a little bit. You can see, it sticks together. But on like a backpack trip or in the backcountry, it's going to be annoying that's falling apart. And I'm starting to realize that this pemmican, that I think when we get to the video where I actually go through the results in like the test results of taking this stuff into backcountry and essentially living off of it, I think that's going to be one issue that drives me crazy, is just how this stuff breaks up. So guys, I hope you got your fill of pemmican, but you've got to subscribe to the channel, and I'm gonna tell you why. I got 2 more videos coming out on this subject, all right? Let me chew this shit up. Guys, the first tag-along video I'm gonna get out in the next few weeks is gonna be how I pack this pemmican and other high-calorie, high-fat, high-protein foods like the smoked cheese that's gonna come out in another video. I'm gonna show you how I pack those, how I calculate my calories, you know, what I'm gonna burn during a backcountry trip, and then how to pack accordingly, okay, these type of foods. So I'll show you that whole broke down process. I'll even get into the nitty gritty of the macronutrients for you guys that are nerds and wanna hear about that, okay? And then the other tag along video is gonna be a real world test based on my backcountry experience this fall with these type of foods, okay? I've actually already taken some of this pemmican on a couple backcountry trips, and I'll tell you, I've already figured out a few important tricks when it comes to eating it, all right? And those tricks help out a lot. I'll throw those in the videos for you. Guys, like I said, like this video and subscribe, and I'll catch you later. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.